Yesterday, developments across the Russian Federation point to a notable escalation in domestic dissent, stemming from a blend of anti-war sentiment and significant economic hardship. This growing unrest signals an increasing internal challenge to the Kremlin's authority, as isolated incidents coalesce into more organized and symbolically potent public demonstrations. The focus of these events sharpened yesterday afternoon in St. Petersburg. Around 3:30 p.m. Moscow time, initial reports and videos showed a large group of young people gathering. This assembly quickly transformed into a protest. By early evening, the crowd had grown significantly, with participants chanting anti-war slogans. Most notably, they began to sing a song that the Russian government has officially banned. The song, titled Cooperative Swan Lake by the rapper Noise MC, is more than just an anti-war anthem. Its lyrics and historical context are widely interpreted as a direct call for a change in government. The power of this song lies in its deep-rooted symbolism from the late Soviet era. Its central lyric, "I want to watch the ballet, let the swans dance," directly references Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. During the Soviet period, state television would play Swan Lake on a loop to fill airtime during moments of political uncertainty, especially after the deaths of leaders like Leonid Brezhnev, Yuri Andropov, and Konstantin Chernenko. However, for the generation that witnessed the fall of the USSR, the ballet is most famously associated with the August coup of 1991, when hardline members of the Communist Party tried to overthrow President Mikhail Gorbachev to halt the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Swan Lake was broadcast on all state channels as tanks entered Moscow. The coup ultimately failed, and 4 months later, the USSR was officially dissolved. Consequently, the ballet has become a cultural symbol for an impending, large-scale political shift. By using this specific imagery, the protesters in St. Petersburg were communicating more than just opposition to the war in Ukraine. They were signaling a desire for a fundamental change in Russia's political system, drawing a parallel to the historic events of 1991. The Kremlin had already recognized the song's potential threat upon its release in 2023. The Russian government acted swiftly to ban the track, and the artist was compelled to leave the country to avoid legal repercussions. The public performance of this song in St. Petersburg yesterday was a direct act of defiance against this state-enforced censorship. As of now, information on arrests at the protest has not been confirmed, but the demonstration's high visibility has already generated strong reactions within the Russian information sphere. Video of the protest quickly went viral across Russian social media networks throughout the afternoon and evening, sparking a divided response. Pro-war and nationalist channels began spreading commentary designed to undermine the protesters. One widely shared message read, "People are singing and jumping around simply because they cannot use their brains. They don't understand what's happening. They think if Putin had wanted it, there would not be a war." This commentary also claimed that the video's reach was being boosted by liberal hamsters and Ukrainian bots to encourage similar protests in other cities. This approach is consistent with the Kremlin's typical strategy of portraying all internal opposition as the result of foreign meddling and a lack of patriotic understanding. On the other side of the spectrum, some online reactions revealed a deep-seated fear of instability among Russians, who recall the chaotic 1990s. One user warned the young demonstrators, "When you idiots see a ballet and a swan dance, aka a regime change, you will be in trouble. Ask your older relatives what it was like when the swans danced." This view reflects the narrative pushed by the Putin administration, that his leadership, though authoritarian, brings stability and prevents a return to the economic turmoil and national disgrace that followed the Soviet collapse. President Putin himself has famously labeled that event as the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 21st century, a perspective shared by a large part of the population conditioned to view the Soviet era as a time of strength and international respect. However, this protest is not an isolated event. It is a symptom of a much deeper and more pervasive dissatisfaction driven by the Kremlin's economic policies, which are placing an increasing burden on the finances of ordinary Russian citizens. These economic grievances are becoming a powerful catalyst for dissent, impacting even those those who might otherwise be neutral or supportive of the war. Just 3 days before the St. Petersburg demonstration, protests were reported in Russia's Far East, directly tied to new financial measures designed to fund the war effort. The government recently passed a law raising the value-added tax, or VAT, to 22%. This means that more than a fifth of the price of most goods and services is now allocated to state revenue. Alongside the VAT increase, a number of other fees and taxes have been implemented, which heavily impact small businesses and consumers. A particularly controversial new measure is a recycling fee on imported cars. As one protester from the Far East explained, the fee for his used electric car, which he bought for 1,200,000 rubles, is now 1,530,000 rubles, an amount that surpasses the car's actual value. He voiced a common frustration, stating, "The Russian Far East will be left without work and without finances, basically with nothing at all." Another protester added, "What annoys me most in life is when our government treats us like idiots, thinks we don't understand anything, and will swallow any initiative they propose." The strategic dilemma for the Kremlin is evident. It is caught in a feedback loop. To sustain its military operations in Ukraine, it needs immense financial resources, which leads to unpopular austerity measures and tax hikes. These policies, in turn, lower living standards, raise the cost of essential goods, and ignite the public anger that the state's security services are meant to suppress. The financial cost of the war is no longer an abstract idea for the Russian people. It has become a daily reality seen in rising prices and diminished incomes. In response to this growing unrest, the Kremlin has escalated its campaign to control the information landscape. A primary tactic has been the disruption of internet services and the restriction of certain communication platforms. Officially, these shutdowns are often justified as a necessary measure to counter Ukrainian drone operations. However, a closer analysis points to a different primary goal. The government's actions have specifically targeted the functionality of encrypted, foreign-owned messaging apps like Telegram and WhatsApp, particularly their calling features. Security experts believe these disruptions are less about stopping drone attacks and more about preventing citizens from organizing and communicating on platforms beyond the Kremlin's direct surveillance. By impairing the performance of these applications, the government hopes to push users toward a state-developed alternative called Max. This platform is built to give Russian security services, like the FSB, complete access to user communications, allowing them to monitor and preempt protest activities. This strategy of information control has also triggered public opposition. In the city of Voronezh, citizens recently demonstrated against the blocking of WhatsApp. Protesters chanted, "Give us back the connection," and carried signs demanding the restoration of their right to communicate. A representative from a local communist organization at the rally declared, "We have gathered here on the basis of the rights guaranteed to us by the Constitution. We oppose this policy because it directly violates our constitutional rights, the right to freedom of information and communication." The sight of a communist group protesting to keep the services of an American tech company in Russia highlights the unconventional alliances forming in opposition to the Kremlin's increasingly tight controls. In summary, yesterday's events mark a significant moment. The protest in St. Petersburg, with its potent historical symbolism, shows that anti-war and anti-regime feelings are becoming more public. Yet, this is intertwined with the broad economic dissatisfaction sweeping across the country. The Kremlin's attempts to fund its war are directly contributing to domestic instability. Its subsequent efforts to contain this instability through greater information control are, in turn, creating new sources of frustration and new reasons to protest. Russia is now contending with a complex internal conflict where economic hardship, political opposition, and state repression are locked in a cycle of escalation, with an outcome that remains highly uncertain. The state's ability to maintain control is being challenged, not just on the battlefields in Ukraine, but with growing intensity by the economic and political consequences at home. The Kremlin's hold on power is being tested daily. As this internal conflict unfolds, our team will continue to provide essential, on-the-ground analysis. To ensure you receive the latest reports on the forces challenging Putin's rule, subscribe to our channel and activate notifications.